Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar on Thriving in the New Normal, Strategies for Employee Wellness and Retention in the Post-Pandemic Workplace. It just felt less than 2 years back that everything has not only changed but changed forever, right? However, less than 2 years later, it looks like we seem to be going full speed back into the past. What do I mean by that? Now, it looks like employers and employees who were all at some point in time, crazy about work from anywhere, and not just work from home, mind you, now seem to be coming back full circle into work from nowhere but the office. Why is this happening? Are employees and employers seeing things differently? There is absolutely no doubt that the last 3 years have touched and changed the perspective of everyone around the globe, right? It was a tragedy of epic proportions and nobody has been left untouched by it. Also, what we can't deny is that post the great resignation, which is now really looked upon as more of a revenge job seeking by employees rather than any other reason, the attrition levels, though not at its peak, have really remained at a stubborn high. So the question really in front of us is, what should therefore employers do to tackle this situation? Are there any remedies at all? How do you make it satisfying to work for a corporate again, come to office and so on and so forth? How do we not just get employees to come to office, but the holy grail of things, right? Getting them to put in discretionary effort up and beyond what they're doing. Is commitment to an employer a complete thing of the past? Do we need to change our systems and processes to take care of the new situation? So to discuss this and more, we have with us three really smart and extraordinary panelists with rich experience. And I'm going to pose some of these questions to them and expect that at the end of this session, we have a better understanding of the situation. Our goal is to provide you some valuable insights into the challenges of the new normal and what are some of the strategies that we can think of which will help us to thrive better, right? So let me start by first introducing my esteemed panelist. Ms. Sarmistha Choudhury is a doctoral research scholar working on PhD thesis from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, School of Management and Labor Studies. She's a keen strategist with 22 years of intensive, rich exposure in all facets of human resource, learning and development and performance management. She's had a corporate career heading high-performing teams across diverse sectors like manufacturing, telecom, automobile, consulting, chemical, and power and energy. Welcome, Sarmistha. Let me introduce Colin.
Thank you so much.
Colin is the head of human resources at VoltasBeko. In his current role, Colin is building talent that brings everyday happiness to each household in India. It's a nice one, Colin. In his earlier assignments, Colin has worked at the group level as well as across varied industries like engineering solution, telecom, ITES, FMCG, pharmaceuticals, with senior leadership positions across Voltas, Tata Sons, Tata Tele, WNS, Bharti Airtel, HUL, and Pfizer. Right. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you, Kartik. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and finally, Abhijit. Abhijit is an HR professional with over 22 years of experience. He's currently the head HR for Manlift India Private Limited, India's largest provider of aerial work platforms on a rental basis. He's worked in the past with NTPC, Tiffany Limited, Welspun, Bajaj, and Hitachi Plant Technologies. He is a strategic HR leader with sound expertise in legal, industrial relations, employee development. He's an avid reader and occasionally enjoys Indian classical music. Welcome, Abhijit.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
We're lucky to have a very diverse panel, and we totally intend to profit, from their experience. Let me first start with you, Abhijit. Abhijit, a lot of companies, who made announcements, during the pandemic of work from anywhere or, work from home. And our workforce will 25% of the workforce will permanently work from home. You would have heard some of the IT companies say, have now all backtracked to some extent. In some cases, it has swung to the other extreme with a full mandate to come back to office all 5 days a week. And with this context in mind, just 2 questions to start with, and quite foundational questions. What has been, or some of the lasting changes or impacts of the last 2 to 3 years on the workforce? So that's part one of the question. In our understanding, has something changed at all or not? second thing is, did anything really change during the pandemic? Did anything really change during the pandemic, or was it just a situation? Why are employers now backtracking from whatever they accepted at that point in time, which was called the new normal? In our understanding, is the situation still evolving? Is there a schism between the way employers are viewing and how employees are viewing their approach to it? So 2 questions really. One is your understanding if things really changed in the last 2 to 3 years, and then are the 2 main constituents, employers and employees, viewing things differently?
Thank you, Kartik, for putting this up. This is a very fundamental question, as you said. Now, things have definitely changed. The pandemic was not a flash in the pan. It was not just 1 day, 15 days, 1 month or 2 months. It lasted a full 2 years. And in many ways, we are feeling the effects still now. So what has changed is that the employees discovered a whole new way to work, where they could work with lesser supervision or lesser control, and they were still engaged, they were still doing work. It was not as if things were not getting done. Things were getting done. And employers, to their horror, discovered that people can work with less supervision and less control, and they are still not able to get out of that mindset of losing that control. So they want to go back to the old ways, and the employees are saying, no, we are happy with the new one. So that's where the dichotomy arises, and that's what fundamentally has changed. And that has changed the power dynamics within the industry, within all industries, so to say. It's not as if one industry is left untouched or anything is left untouched. If you see if we see the research work which has been done, post 2018, most of the employee engagement surveys, if you see across the world, and I think Gartner and Harvard Business Review have done their researches on it, the employee engagement scores have almost flatlined. They have plateaued. There have been very insignificant changes in the engagement score. And the intent to stay has also dropped down. In fact, there have been studies where most of the HR leaders themselves are not very confident that their workforces intend to stay for a long time. Now, this is a situation which employers at the large are unwilling to acknowledge. They know it's there, but they can't somehow accept it. It's as if your child has told you of their intention to leave you and go away and find its own way in the world, and the parent can't accept it. So I think that's a very homely way of putting it, but I can't think of a better simile in these circumstances.
No, thanks, Abhijit. I think that's very interesting way of putting it. I mean, clearly, I think the point you made resonates with me. I think employees have discovered a new way, of doing work, without being, supervised, and perhaps in many cases without even being present in a physical place. And that brings me on to you, Colin. Are employees expecting things differently than what they expected earlier, especially the younger workforce? Right? My manager, for example, who was of a certain vintage in the year 2000, turn of the millennium, used to advise me then, obviously fresh out of MBA, that listen, happiness is with family and friends, job is for satisfaction and money. Do you feel, in essence, that has changed now in some sense? Do employers also need to pivot and understand between satisfaction and happiness and exactly what the younger workforce requires?
Yeah, there are 2 things about it, and there's a whole bunch of happiness and there is a whole bunch of satisfaction, and I'm tending to move towards the happiness direction, because I see that there are significant benefits and there is a significant. Let me put it this way: picture this. What does a happy employee give you? A happy employee is more loyal. A happy employee is likely to take more risk. A happy employee is more creative. A happy employee is a better problem solver, and of course, a happy employee provides more productivity or higher productivity. Yeah, so I think these things are very, very clear in terms of if I weigh between satisfaction and happiness. I think happiness is a far way to look at it. Yeah. And today, happy employees, can broaden and build themselves far much more larger in an organization context. They're also in today's context, particularly if you look at, and I've looked at data that emerges from studies across. There's also they're more resilient to changing situations. They're also more socially connected, and more I would say, if I to put it broadly, physically, mentally, more healthier in that sense. And so therefore, Kartik, what makes the working environment really engaging and motivating is really going to be very, very critical. Mm-hmm. And I think today, workflows happiness really helps in realizing this entire goal of the organization. So there has to be some sync between what an employee is looking for, what the organization is looking for, and these two goals need to come and marry each other, and then it works towards a larger benefit and a larger good. So this is also increasingly going to become more and more critical. Particularly when you look at employee well-being. Yeah. And here, when we look at employee well-being, it's a very large canvas, because when you're looking at that, you're looking at it from a large perspective, and how happiness is going to become very pivotal to ensuring that people want to continue and work in the same organization. And we just spoke about it. You spoke about situations where organizations are there, and organizations are, and we're having situations where people are wanting to go, and, we're having situations of high attrition and things like that. So what's really holding people to come back and stay with you? Yeah. And it's actually, if you ask me, it is the experience. It's the experience of every employee that the employee gets that actually goes to a very long way. And this will ensure that people are more energized, they're more enthusiastic to work, they find meaning and purpose in their job, and they are able to find good colleagues, good friends, who will make them continue, and they start building and encouraging the vibe of happiness throughout. So I think these people are actually levers to build the larger employee well-being, the larger employee well-being of the organization, and will contribute to a large extent in terms of ensuring the organization is a far more productive organization. So all said and done, productivity, organizations are looking for high productivity, but we're also looking at various levers that will ensure business continuity. If I broadly put it that way.
Yeah. Colin, if I just expand on what you're saying and specific to you, I have employees who walk up, and these are much more younger employees, right? And they say, hey, listen, what? So why do you want to leave the job? It's not money, it doesn't seem to be anything else. Most of them say, hey, listen, I'm not happy. And sometimes it becomes so difficult to be able to interpret it. It could be a generational gap, so let me confess that. Because I can understand, monetary benefits, I can understand, some degree of purpose, etc., and all that. But coming from you, when you say that, happiness is an important thing for most, how should, potential employees or even managers break it down in terms of being able to understand what that really means for an employee?
Yeah, and I think, Kartik, just to add to, the very important aspect is, when you're saying that you're not happy, what is actually delivering that unhappiness, And there could be a variety of reasons, and I can tell you that there is no one-size-fits-all approach, because, as you said, there are generations, and today there are generations in every organization. So, if you look at it from that perspective, you have multi-generation workforce, you have different needs and demands, and therefore different levels of happiness that you need to deal with. Okay. So it is about personalization, it is about customization that will help, make it win-win for everyone as well as for the organization. So I think finding that line, and I think it's very important for every manager here to come and sit, and even for everyone to actually sit with people and really understand what is actually delivering that, and try and nip at some of these smaller areas that can be dealt with, and some of the low-hanging fruits, if you actually deal with, you're able to actually start off on a higher note and ensure you're able to build up further from there.
Got it. So you're saying it's more individual and personalized, so there's no one shoe.
Absolutely.
Sarmistha, coming to you and building up on that, from both a practitioner in corporate and somebody who's now, thinking deeply from an academician's perspective. In your, point of view, what are like 2 or 3 elements that now HR strategists should keep in mind in the new normal, right? So, for example, should employers even expect loyalty of any sort from an employee? Clearly the other way around, the story is very clear. Most employees will come and tell you saying, hey, listen, the last 2 years, 3 years, if anything, they have taught that, you guys don't think about us, right? But I still have to, run a system where it pays me well if I have an employee who's there with me for a longer period of time. Right. So what should a potential employer be thinking?
Yeah, very rightly questioned. I think this is a point that every employer is thinking about. How do I, own my employee in terms of their productivity? How do I engage my employees, whether they would run off or not, and what should I do? But at the same time, as I was discussing yesterday also, I think we are trying to source out the best of the employees, the skilled employees, people from, all top B schools and engineering grads. That is all okay. But before even I move, I go to the, to get an employee, I have to think as an employer how much competitive I am today, how much loyal I am to my employee. So I have given, when I say I, it is like I am an employer. So as employer, how much loyalty did I show in the times of when people were thriving, when people were struggling, when the crisis has hit us? So see, look, as HRs, HRs or academicians or professionals, we know how to deal with complicated world, but the crisis have taught us how to deal with the complexity. So we are moving from a complicated world, and we are trying to, be more, professional and more academically skilled, more professionally skilled to deal with the complexity. What is complicated? Complicated means we know there are few things, but things are not easily moving. And what is complex? Complex means the world is already complicated, but there is something new suddenly coming up, and we don't know how to deal with it. So as professionals and academicians, I think we have to first learn how to move from that complicated part to, have ourselves more skilled as employers and deal with the complexity. Now, when I am talking about loyalty of the people, yes, we have seen few of the people, professionals have been loyal throughout. And when it came towards COVID, we knew that how many employers had to lay off their employees. But layoff always doesn't mean the employer, do not want and he wants to make his profits. No, there are small scale industries. There are many, industries which, but despite wanting the people to stay, couldn't survive because they themselves didn't have that much of profits. We were not, we knew how to deal with complicated things. We didn't know the sudden complexity that would crop up. So in that case, we have to be more resilient towards the various complexities that is happening inside. We should be able to have more agility in our systems, So when I say agile, it is not only the human resources, it is about the technologies and, the kind of approach that we have. Generally, all the organizations figure as a top-down approach. When I talk about top-down approach, it is more about how to control people or how to have those policies and practices in place, which is more about, decision making from the top. But things have moved, as my very dear colleagues, Mr. Colin and Mr. Abhijit was talking about happiness, was talking about, how to deal with this happiness and how to make the things more happier. I think we should also have to know how to move and bring a more agile culture. Top down is good, but at the same time, we have to create a platform where we have to have more of, not an ad hoc, but something which is very much, decision-making approach where people, all the, team, people in the team have that power to themselves decide and put it. The ideation should be open, a very transparent, a very flexible culture is needed. in order to co-create and cope up with this new complexity. I mean, yesteryears, I mean, 2 year back, we were thinking how to survive. Then we thought, okay, the new normal has come up. Now we will be, hybrid kind of culture. We will try to do things this way or that way. But now it is more of, bringing back people to office. But let's not push them. Let's make a very influential, way to motivate, to influence, and then, because, when we were in working from home, we didn't lose out of the productivity. Things were still going on. So why to push? Why to push them? Let's create that kind of systems and structure where people automatically, think and come back to office and understand and take that charge in himself. I think that is a way where we have to, have a between the lines. We have to have that kind of culture, I think. So culture is very important. I think we need to create that kind of agile and, transparent culture. Flexibility should be the key. That's what I think.
No, thanks, Sarmistha. At least, one part I got clearly. So I think it's not complicated, it's complex. And hence, I think we have to accept that, as a norm. Complicated sounds as if it's not going to be unraveled. But complex is, I think we need to just absorb saying there are more variables than usual. So I get that part. And you're saying, hey, therefore, move away from the factory kind of a decision-making process, more top-down, you need to be more inclusive, with respect to everything. And that's an important segue for me to come back to you, Abhijit. Historically, there is always a lot of clamor for employee engagement, okay, and fun at work and, whatnot. Are these ideas still, relevant? Are these important from an employee point of view to feel connected to a workplace? Because I have seen in some of the organizations post-pandemic, there's a little bit of step down on some of these. It used to happen a lot more. In fact, again, from my own experience, let me give you some bizarre examples. Somebody decided up in North saying they need to have fun during working hours and decided to play music at 11 o'clock in the morning loudly for employees to have fun. And many of them who were in conference calls were completely cheesed off, right? And then finally, of course, that idea, as you can imagine, came to an abrupt end, right? Now, where everybody's trying to figure out saying, how do I make employees more connected, come back to office, and so on and so forth? Because unlike what Sarmistha is saying, while the new normal is saying, hey, can we allow people to work from anywhere? The reality is managers are still wanting to make some of the employees come back to office, right? So is the fun part and the employee engagement part still relevant? Are we doing it the right way?
Okay, thank you, Kartik. The fun part, what was masqueraded as fun, it might have been funny, but it was never fun. Okay, so let's be very clear on that. So getting half-baked fun ideas onto work creates much more distraction, and it brings into question your more serious pursuits. So it gets tarred by the same brush. So half-baked funny ideas are certainly not fun at the workplace, not for HR, not for anybody else. So let me be very categorical about that. Second question is about the engagement part. Now, engagement has changed radically. Whether we want to accept it or not, the engagement patterns and the engagement criteria has changed. Earlier, what passed off as professional was a strictly professional. When we understood, people of my vintage, when we graduated out of B schools, the professional was like, you keep your meetings like this, you have to have your communication in this particular manner, it's strictly no personal, there are boundaries and all such things. But now with the social media, with the new kind of generations, the boundaries between professional and personals, I won't say they have been erased, but they have become much more porous. Let's put it that way. Okay, so now you are trying to build up communities. See, for you cannot be divorced of sociological changes when you do HR, or for that matter, any kind of organizational study. The sociological changes are, we are building online communities, we are finding, proxy friends and relatives on the social media. We like to be, a thumbs up sign makes our day, or if somebody approves of us on the social media, though we are building virtual communities. So the idea is that the family or the community has moved on to the workplace via various media. So you have to build those kind of communities. So engagement today, I feel, can be very, very, succinctly put down to answer to 5 questions. 1, I feel valued. I feel invested. I feel understood. I feel cared for. So if these questions are answered as yes by any employee, and we are more or less, and the final and most important question, of course I forgot that, which is very important for people of the younger generation, that I feel autonomous enough. Okay, so if any employer can ensure maximum yeses to these 5 questions, believe me, he would be in clear. He or she would be in clear. They would not have an issue. So I feel connected, I feel valued, I feel autonomous, I feel cared for. So all these questions are important aspects. So any employer, so as an employer, if I design any kind of program, okay, I would have to keep these factors in mind and see how do they deliver to these answers being yes. So when I say I feel connected, I build communities, I feel valued, so that means there is an instant recognition system. We are moving away from these annual appraisal things. I mean, now this generation it's like you want instant recognition now. I posted an Instagram story, how many likes did I get? And if I did not get enough likes by 1 hour, that story is already stale.
Yeah.
A new story has to take over. So values, when you say I feel cared for, so you need to talk about health benefits, you need to talk about very, very non-traditional things which we had been thinking about. So away from that, so you might have parenting leaves, you might have sabbaticals, you might talk about if there are people whom you feel that, what you just said, people say I don't feel happy, I'm just not happy. Believe me, Kartik, if you try and if you use these 5 questions, you will find more often that there is an answer to no to either one or more of them, that they are not happy.
Got it.
Or there is a fear of burnout. So a simple thing is that after a very intense project, maybe you could send them on a 15-day sabbatical or a road trip to somewhere or something which they enjoy. That's a kind of benefit we should talk about. So those are the things which we have to see. That's my take on it.
No, I think I love your framework, Abhijit. First of all, thank you for such, frank feedback on the heartbeat, fun idea thing. I get it. And I think historically, traditionally, that's what, people understood as what is required. But clearly, I think there has been a move away from it. I think amongst many, I love your framework as well. I think I'm going to use that, connected, valued, invested, understood, and cared for. But I think amongst the many important things, I think the autonomous part, I see that resonating more and more with younger people as they come forward and say, don't tell me how to do it, just tell me what requires to be done. And then, I'll go out and do whatever is required. If I fail, I'm going to come back and confess, saying this is the part which didn't work right at all. So, super idea. When we are investing and doing so much in framework, and Colin, circling back to you, how should we even have a mental makeup for short-term tenures? I mean, there is now a legit thing, and I feel old school because I see resumes with 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. And I'm saying, hey, listen, so there's this new guy who's going to come to my organization with exactly one last 5 years. And that seems to be, and from where I'm based in Bangalore, that's for me like a normal, comfortable thing, right? These are all startups where people have worked for a year and all. And they're extremely proud. They're very smart young people, who have varied experiences. They are a set of people who say, hey, listen, don't tell me I have to do only one specialization for the rest of my life. I have learned from 5 different topics, right? So what should be our approach as well for, short-term employees? Do you see that from an organization perspective? Is it an opportunity for us to kind of being able to gain from them? Or is it some sort of a thing that we have to work around?
Absolutely, and thanks Kartik for that. On a lighter note, this question reminds me of a very famous song, Should I Stay or Should I Go? By The Clash. Okay, so if you've heard it, yeah, but if not, you could hear it out. And I think, short-term employee, short-term tenures actually are very, very, are looked at from an HR perspective, are looked at, so this guy is a job hopper.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy is ambitious, he's hungry, he's looking for, new challenges, or he's more adaptable. So there are, there are various ways to look at it, and if I look at conversely a long-term employer, which traditionally will be a mindset of most people or most traditional HR, maybe, a long tenured employee would be, oh wow, this person's committed, this person is more loyal, this person is invested in their work, and this person has got a wealth of knowledge and capability that he brings from every organization. So he's my ideal candidate. So it's a dilemma. Really, what am I looking for, or what is the organization looking for? First, if you step back and before you talk about what you're looking for, what are you trying to fix in your organization? What is your current situation in your organization? And can this short tenured employee fix that? Yeah. So is there a golden rule or a golden solution? If you ask me, I don't think I have that. But at the same time, I can say that, it's exactly what you're trying to fix, and maybe that person could be the right solution. So I'm certainly not discounting the short-term or the short tenured employees. I personally see it's an opportunity to use these people for the benefit of the organization. Now, so let me give you a quick example on this. A person who has worked for a short term, is ambitious, is hungry. He's the person who has got that hunger within, who will make a difference in that organization. He is the person who can either make or break the current situation. So if you're in an organization is in a slack mode, you need to bring some of these who will disrupt, who will create disruption. And this is the type of a person who will do that. He will disrupt the situation, and he will ensure people start breaking through their traditional thought process. So that's one significant advantage. The other advantage in a short tenure employee is that they've got a wide range of experience. They don't come with baggage of something that is casted in stone. Yeah, today a lot of people, they come from a particular organization, and without referencing the names, I know that if they come from that background, they would be probably hard-coded on many things. And so therefore, without offense to the organization and the credibility that they carry, I have the preconceived notion that a person from this organization or from this business sector will be pretty hard-coded on things. And so therefore, it's not what I'm looking for. It's not what will a person who will come and make a difference or shift the apple cart in my organization. The other thing is, what I see in this is also they have a unique experience that they can generate within a very short period of time. They are quick learners. Okay, they learn, they know what they want to do, and they quickly learn, and they are able to demonstrate and illustrate. So they are the impatient types variety. And today we're increasingly seeing that a lot. I think all of us have faced a situation where we're having people who have spent a tenure of even less than a year in the organization.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to see what we can do. How do we use these skills? How do we discover, we develop, and we look at new methods of solving organization issues, And today, there are, of course, let me talk about the other side. Well, I've spoken on the pro part of it. The other side is, these people, as I said, they will work for a limited span time. They'll create disruption. but look at the organization continuity. Okay, look at long-term sustainability. Look at relationship management in the organization for a period of time. Because you will have new people coming in every now and then. So I think these are things that will be roadblocks. I wouldn't say significant roadblocks, but will be roadblocks in building meaningful relationship with the team to create an organization culture for a long period of time. And they will. I think these are things that it's important for us to really look at it from a perspective of, hey, what do you want? What do you want? What's the culture you want to grow in the company? Hey, what is the type of problem that you need to solve today? Are you looking at something that will thrive in a short-term environment, or are you looking at something that will disrupt the short-term and create a long-term platform for a long-term period of time? And I think that will give you the answer. Therefore, what is the type of role? What is the type of employment type? And therefore, what are the type of people you need to have?
Got it. No, really nice, Colin. Of course, if I was a media person, I know what is the line to pick up from your entire statement. Colin says, shake things up for specific roles. But I get it. I'm just curious on one more point. A large media company, I spoke to was also kind of evaluating, saying some of their core really senior roles, right? They might even look at what we call now or understood as gig employees, right?
Yeah.
And the point which was put forward is, it is more a lifestyle choice now, because that sort of an opportunity is available. I want to work for just 3 days, right? From a more HR perspective, Colin, do you see that that's such a cadre will be able to soak in culturally? Do you see that as a challenge at all?
So again, I go back to the type of role and the type of file that we're looking at. And is this a type of person that I want to soak into the culture, or is this the person who I want to bring who brings expertise on the table, delivers it, and signs out? And so therefore that will give me my solution. So to answer long and short, if I were to answer your point, will they be able to soak culturally? It's about how much you involve them into the entire process. How much you involve them into the larger picture. Are they only here to deliver a Swiggy parcel, or are they here to deliver a customer experience? So it's a difference whether it's just plain delivery or it's delivery with experience. And I think if you look at the latter half, that will give you a perspective of therefore what you need to do and how do you need to retain such kind of expertise in your company. That will make a difference in your marketplace, in your competition, competitiveness, and in long-term sustainability. Got it.
No, so I think the essence of what you're saying is, hey, listen, as an employer, you did need to know what exactly are you hiring for, right? And I think that will lead to that. Sarmistha, coming to you, the same context of what I was asking Colin. How do you, you keep hearing that, this term called quiet quitting, right? Which is, hey, listen, I'm not quitting. You pay me $100, I'll work exactly for 99.99. I'm not going to work even one bit beyond that. And our entire corporate model, this entire thing has been built on saying, how do we get people to put discretionary effort, right? Now, how do I get people to put discretionary effort, especially if the entire engagement is short-term commitment, right? So it just looks like individuals that come in for shorter periods of time. I get paid X amount of money, I'm going to deliver this, right? Is there something that I can do, even if it's a short-term duration? When I'm saying short term, let me qualify, like an employee is there for a year or less than a year in some cases, that I can get them to go beyond the normal, so as an employer I can benefit from that.
I think short-term quitting has just become a social media trend these days for the youngsters. They just want to put something hashtag and they want to put their experiences and move out. It's very difficult if they have made up for their mind. It is. But then let's understand what's actually a short quitting mean. I mean, it's not about quitting the job. It just means what they are going to have. They want to have more work-life balance, I guess. So what they want, they would be still doing their performing their duties and obligations, but they want to have live life their way. I think that has become the trend these days. I still remember, although we are not from the Gen X, we are quite, I think we are going to be baby boomers, quite. So still I have seen, I have my friend, I wouldn't name her because she is quite a personality. She is, in a very top IT director position in one of the Fortune 500 companies. So I have seen how she had grown. So, what did she do? She worked with big MNCs. She would work for 2 years and then she would take rest. She would be at home, nurture her daughter, and her husband would work. This way she would manage. She has managed, and now she is in a very, very, very senior position. Still, when she has gone to US and she directed almost most of the countries, that time her husband took a break and he took care of his daughter. So I think that is not a new trend. It has been trend from our time, but it was not so common. And it is more, I think it's about, as Kartik rightly put it, as a discretionary. It is a discretionary part of work. One wants to have a balanced work from home. And nowadays, since the population has become thicker and we have lot of students coming up and all of that, they want to practice this, and that has become a trend these days. I think that's all I wanted to talk about.
No, thanks, Sarmistha. I think it's quite a positive take on quiet quitting, saying, hey, listen, they're not saying I work only for $100. I have other things to do in my life. I'm not
other
only
things to do in my life.
Right?
Yes. They want to nurture their passion. Somebody is a photographer. He wants to do a job, earn quite a lot of money. Stop for some time, nurture the passion. For us, it was like, okay, fine. After 50 years, I will take a voluntary break and then I will nurture my passion. But nowadays, they won't do that. They want to use it. They want to, working is as much important as nurturing their passion. So that has become a trend, I think so.
Yeah. No, that also brings me back to what Abhijit said during the beginning of the conversation. I can't divorce the fact that there are social changes which are taking place outside. I think a certain generation of people who came from a lot more middle class insecurity, and there's a new set of folks who are much more confident of their own self, and probably have the parental wealth for them to be able to sustain for a while, are clearly looking at expanding the number of opportunities in front of them, right? So that's way. That brings me back to you, Abhijit. This is just during the last 2-3 years of pandemic, there's a certain fintech company in North, and I'll not name, was offering bikes and vacations to Dubai. I don't know if you read about it, as inducements for them to kind of join, right? What are steps therefore companies can take now to be able to be some sort of a talent magnet, right? But of course not on these inducements alone, but otherwise how do we advertise to get employees in the right kind? Hey Abhijit, I think you're on mute. If you could just unmute yourself.
I wouldn't know about the Dubai trips and the bikes, but see, inducements can be many. Like, if you join us, we'll do this, that, and there are ESOPs, there are stock grants, there are stock options, there are bonuses, benefits, retention bonuses, so on and so forth. We have done. Most of us have been there, done that kind of situations. Now the inducements. See, again, I'll come back to that particular model. And Sarmistha very rightly said that today people have passions or interests beyond their work. Okay, so that's a very important thing to recognize, that people have passions and interests beyond their work. They also have a life beyond their work, and I envy them for that, from my generation's perspective. So and they're very, very open to say that. They're very open to say that. They won't hide behind any kind of thing. And before I address this, I'd like to just you have used one word very beautifully, that's called discretionary input, Kartik. So basically, as I'm basically an economist. So what you are trying to say is unpaid labor.
Yes.
You're just putting it into a very nice word, discretionary effort or something. You're basically trying to say unpaid labor. Now, why should somebody do unpaid labor for you? Okay. So let's and that is very closely related to the question of inducements or incentives. Okay. Now, out of the traditional 4 factors, I'll go back to the 4 factors of production. If you want your machinery to work more, you have a certain rating on that machinery, and that machinery has to deliver more than that rating. What would you do? You would have very rigorous preventive maintenance schedules.
Correct.
You will see to it that the source power does not get affected very much. There's not much of voltage fluctuations. The breakdowns are at the minimum. Very skilled people, handle those machines, and so on and so forth. That's what you would do to get something more out of that machine. Why do you think human beings as a factor of production would behave any different? You need to, sort of handle a lot many organizations, and sadly to say, HR is handled as a hobby horse. Okay. Somebody or anybody can be given the point of HR and people are doing it, hamming their way through. And in a lot many organizations, even though I'm a member of that fraternity, I must say it's being handled very, very, in a very amateur manner. So like you wouldn't give your machines to an unskilled person. Similarly, you should not hand over your human resources to unskilled people. You need people who are trained for it, who have been, who think about it, who are clearly interested in it. Secondly, you need to give people a chance to express themselves very clearly, very articulately, not just, in very traditional methods like town halls or something where people do express themselves. But apart from that, you need to be very social media or media savvy for that matter. You need to give them time to indulge themselves into whatever their passion is. So one of the incentives, for example, you can say you have various employees who have various hobbies. You can pay them an allowance or an incentive to join a particular club or a forum which helps them to explore that hobby. Like Sarmistha talked about photography. So maybe you can tell the employees that people who are interested in photography, okay, you can join the photography club or something of that sort. You can enter into a certain contest where it requires some money. The company will sponsor you. Proviso, there are certain, like you have been in the company for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever. Similarly for other hobbies. So we need to think about these kind of new ideas, which, feed into their requirement to have a multifaceted life. We have to understand that today's employee wants to be multifaceted, whether it's their work, whether it's their hobbies, whether it's their life. They are not satisfied with just that 9 to 5 thing and probably beyond. So rethink on your ideas of inducements or incentives, whatever you would like to call them. They should have breaks. I mean, we have to respect their boundaries. There are certain boundaries because what happened, the pandemic broke all the boundaries. People were having meetings at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, because probably everybody thought everybody else was free. But that's not the case right now. So we have to respect boundaries. We have to give them ways to express themselves. We have to make them, help them find some purpose in life apart from their work, which is connected to the company. So probably if I'm a youngster and the company, helps me realize my hobby, okay, gives me okay, you have done very good, so let me give you a 10-day hiking trip. Probably if I like hiking or trekking, or if I like cycling, or I do like anything else, I would be much more invested in the company and join or stay back, because it's a company which has differentiated itself from others by addressing my needs personally. So again, coming back to what Colin said, there's no one solution, there's no single panacea. So it's the time for specialization, individualization of incentive packages as well.
Got it, Abhijit. I think you've been consistent with saying, hey, listen, there is an inherent need for a community. And of course, your starting point is there is definitely, nobody's really looking just at work, there is life beyond work. And hence, as long as you are able to kind of merge some of their individual passion and requirement along with the work and build that community around it, I think you have a much better chance of being able to retain that employee. Right?
That's right.
Rather than just any raw inducements, which are not connected to that particular individual. Right?
Yes.
And which, Colin, brings me back to you. A single most important question: the manager, the business. All of you from HR fraternity, but the manager is a paranoid manager. He's saying, you guys want to do all these things. What do I, there was definitely a lack of trust during the pandemic period, which led to, all kinds of meetings till 11 o'clock, like Abhijit said. What can do managers need to be retrained first, if at all? And what can they do to kind of being able to maintain some work expectations, especially, let's say, if they have to accommodate for flexible, working arrangements and so on and so forth?
I can't just, I can just reiterate what Abhijit just mentioned, respect of boundaries. I think that's most important. But let me just start with, what are
if I must say, I just excuse me.
Surely,
Colin, probably you just wanted to say to the managers, get a life, boys.
Absolutely. No, and I think just to add on to it, flexible work environment, and we will all agree, and we all live through that, definitely helped us significantly, both organization as well as on an individual note, on a personal note. I think, one, it helped on a personal side support families. From an organization perspective, it helped build trust. From an employer perspective or from a manager's perspective, he was wondering whether he or she had better employee control. A lot of commute time got saved, and therefore possibly reduced stress. But there's also the other way that Abhijit just mentioned, that people had 7 o'clock morning meetings, and I can't even think of those ones. So there are significant benefits that actually took place with this entire flexible work arrangement, and I personally feel this is a way forward for most mature organizations. In ensuring, and I'm talking about more, offices kind of setup and not manufacturing setup. That's what I should qualify that. But because that will ensure that there is due flexibility, and at the same time you're able to get the best productivity from people. So, considering that we have an arrangement of this nature, how do we get the best out of each other? I think that's what the moot point is. And I think one of the important things is, a line of sight to the large picture. When someone's working remotely, a lot of distortion takes place in the communication. Sometimes I'm in the office and I see someone, I shout out something and I tell them, hey, this is what, just took place. That does not always happen on a Zoom call like this, right? We get onto a defined call, and then we have a list of points to be done. We deal with those points, and then that's it. But a lot of things as human nature happen at the spur of the moment. And so therefore, to ensure that the larger, or the communication is constantly managed, it's a line of sight to the larger purpose of the organization. I think another very important is strong mechanisms to ensure there is a review, there is something done. It's not only an assignment given and we don't bother about it. And I think it's also important to measure the task rather than the time. So time, of course, certainly is important, but actually also measuring the task, because if someone delivers the task to me at 6 a.m. in the morning, I'm happy about it. Or even if someone delivers it to me at 12 midnight, as long as it's delivered before time. Before the due date. So I think these are very effective models for a manager to ensure that the expectation of work is constantly being done, and this is a very easy doable model. And also find time for fun. And I know you referred to someone spoke about fun, and light moments. Find time to ensure to get that, to have those moments, because a lot of the people working remotely may be on different time zones, or maybe at different locations. So how do you get them, for a moment where the entire team finds an opportunity to say hi, wish them on occasions that matter, and make it more meaningful for them, though they work remotely or though they work in a flexible environment. So find those moments, and I think that will ensure that they stay more connected and they are more engaged and more happy, if I were to also reiterate, with the organization.
No, absolutely. And I enjoyed this conversation so much that I didn't realize that it's almost an hour actually. Pretty much with many of my questions in that, but I guess those have to wait for another time. But I'd like to thank all of you for some very thoughtful and practical tips, if I may say. And I have to confess, saying, the composition of the panel today was such that we got some of those ideas from varying, experiences, etc., and all that. And, Sarmistha, from your point, saying, hey, listen, it's complex, it's not complicated. So don't try over-engineer the entire thing. Just accept the fact that there are multiple variables to the entire thing. Colin, you're spot on with 2 points. I think happiness, and of course, the more important thing, saying there is life beyond work, right? So don't be too fixated on that entire thing. And Abhijit, from your perspective, I'm going to keep that 6 framework model, and I think the most important among that outside the connected thing is the autonomous part of it, right? And I think amongst many things, I know that younger employees who are coming through, and maybe perhaps older employees would have spoken about it, but I think definitely the assertive younger employees coming forward and saying, give me the work, in Colin's words, let me focus on the task and output. Yeah, don't be too fixated on a factory model of, finishing it in 1.5 hours efficiently. I will get that thing done if you allow me to get it done right. So
I
with
would
that,
like to say just one point,
yes,
which
please.
I thought I should be, I don't know. That is, to be very successful, we need to translate science into practice. So when we talk about science, it is the feelings, the thing, a feeling of getting satisfied, the feeling of commitment, the feeling of energized. So if we can translate that science into practice, I think a lot of our problems would be resolved.
Absolutely. I think I completely second that. And I think definitely more thought and research needs to go into that, Sarmistha, for us to be able to kind of put that across practically, right, in more organizations.
So I would just like to leave you with a very, very quick example of what has changed post-pandemic. Mm-hmm. One of my employees came back after, I was in a different company then, and the person said that, look, I can't come to office every day, even if you start the office. You would have to allow me to work from home at least for 3 to 4 days or something. I said, why is that? The employer replied that during the pandemic, I was so lonely, I kept a pup as a pet. The pet has been with me for 1.5 years now. It's grown up and it's never been without me. So how can I leave it alone in the home and come to office? That's the kind of world we are living in, Kartik.
Yeah. And that's
if I can just add one more, a lot of us spoke about purpose, and I think purpose is very personal. Yes. I think organizations really play a very, very critical role in how purpose is expressed. Yeah, so I just thought I'll leave it that.
No, absolutely. I think great set of points. Once again, I can't thank all of you. First of all, to give your time, and I really look forward to kind of engaging with you one-on-one as we kind of meet up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kartik.
Thank you.
Thank you.